Welcome to the AM Update, Week in Review. A collection of the best moments from Aaron McIntire's Morning Update.
Former Fox News host turned independent commentator Tucker Carlson has not been friendly, let's say, with the state of Israel in recent years. Some have speculated that maybe he is on the dime or on the payroll of various foreign interests. He has had a marked shift in tone when it comes to Israel and what the United States' role is in the Middle East. I have as well, in fairness, and I think a lot of people have, and a lot of people have just come to the end of their wits about what we should be doing, what our role in the world actually is militarily. However, Tucker Carlson, in the midst of Israel's war against Iran, and make no mistake, it is a war. When you launch missiles and when you launch a fleet, 200 aircraft at enemy targets deep inside enemy territory, that is an act of war. They declared war. Tacitly, anyway. Tucker Carlson did not like that. Now, I haven't seen everything that he's posted, but he has been very critical of the United States basically giving the green light to Israel to go forward with this plan to allegedly topple the Iranian regime. Well, President Trump got wind of that criticism by way of The Atlantic. Here's what The Atlantic wrote over the weekend. Quote, "When I caught Donald Trump by phone this morning, the president wanted to make one thing clear. America first means whatever he says it does. Well, quote, this is a quote from the president, well, considering that I'm the one that developed America first, and considering that the term wasn't used until I came along, I think I'm the one that decides that. For those people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace." I want to pair that with something that I saw from Dave Raboy. He's a national security expert, really good follow on X, who is perpetually shadow banned. But Dave Raboy writes, quote, "Been talking about this all day with friends. When the Iranian regime collapses like Israel defeated its proxy armies, the anti-Israel and anti-Jewish AstroTurf campaign that kicked off after October 7th will collapse as well. It's been goosed and heavily fortified by bot farms and info ops from China and Russia, and neither have had much interest in burning money. We'll soon see the bubble deflate." And Raboy was actually responding to a viscerally anti-Israel post from Candace Owens, another commentator. So why did I pair these things back to back? Number one, I just want to say this. It's become pretty clear who has a special animosity for Israel and who has a special love for Israel. Both are forms of partiality, and I just can't stand. I saw one, maybe it's just the algorithm, but I saw one of those ends of the spectrum on full display Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and all throughout the entire weekend. This really weird special animosity that some hold for Israel. And I think it's a backlash to the other end of the spectrum of partiality, the special love that the previous generation has shown for Israel. Here's what I mean by that. Setting up Google alerts for whether or not certain advancements have been made about rebuilding the temple, whether there's been a red heifer that's been born in Israel. Things like that. This like special, I don't know, this special concentration for Israel, because that's largely driven by eschatology. And then there's special animosity that I see as well. I think both of those, I try to hit the eject from both of those. I think it's wrong because I think we're arguing about the wrong thing. Try to analyze this as just objectively as you possibly can. Try to. Take away all of your eschatology arguments, what you think Israel means for the end times, things of that nature. Take those all away as much as you possibly can. Analyze this as objectively as possible. Maybe you think Israel is the devil. Maybe you think Israel has a huge role to play in the coming days. Try to analyze this as objectively as possible. Forget we have any form of eschatology baggage coming into this. Here's what Trump said in the last sentence. "For the people who say they want peace, you can't have peace if Iran has a nuclear weapon. So for all of those wonderful people who don't want to do anything about Iran having a nuclear weapon, that's not peace." That's what we should be arguing about. if you want to make your points well. Do you believe Iran has or has the capability or is working towards a nuclear weapon? I do. It's because I've been awake for the last 20 years. And it goes back longer than that. I understand that. But definitely in the last 20 to 25 years, they have been working towards a nuclear weapon. They have. I just don't think that's up for debate. If they weren't working towards a nuclear weapon, why wouldn't they just take the deal that's on the table with President Trump? No nuclear weapons, but we'll do all of this trade with you, most favored nation status, wink, wink. Why wouldn't you just take that deal? It's because they were working on a nuclear weapon. So that is what you're doing. If you feel differently, bring that evidence and we can present that. But that's really what we're arguing about. Because if you're right, if they're not working for a nuclear weapon, then yes, Israel would just be nutso here for launching strikes inside Iran. But if you spend 5 minutes listening to the Ayatollah, 5 minutes listening to, in the last 2 decades ago now, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad whack job, whatever his name was, the very vocal president of Iran, you know that their goal is to wipe Israel off the face of the planet, and probably us next. Just as a general rule, do you think it's ever a good idea, if you are in the Christian West, to let your chief really competitor on the global stage, the demonic inversion, upside down version of your faith, the Islamic faith, and radical Islamists at that, and there's no such thing as a moderate Islamist if they're being really honest. Do you think it's ever a good idea for them to have a nuclear weapon? No, that's not a good idea. Now, it just so happens, I think two things can be true at the same time. They should not have a nuclear weapon. I also don't want to do any more wars in the Middle East. Well, guess what? We've got an ally with the capability we've seen now and the ability to do your dirty work for you. So, praise be. That's great. So that's the first observation here. It's becoming pretty clear, number one, who has a special animosity for Israel. Just a special hatred for Israel, for whatever reason, and those who have a special love, a misplaced love for Israel, for whatever reason. It's pretty clear this operation is about regime change. I think that's become abundantly clear. It was not just to wipe out nuclear facilities. I think it's about regime change. The way that Bibi Netanyahu, I've seen over the weekend, messaging to the Iranian people, he's trying to get them to rise up and giving them the cover to do so. So I don't think that it's necessarily lying to say that this was the first thing that they wanted to do was get rid of their nuclear leaders, their nuclear scientists, their nuclear facilities. But it's pretty clear this is about something much bigger. And I understand that, because if you don't change regimes at some point, we're going to be back at the same point. And I think the last observation, kind of from a big picture, is the prime reason we have this massive influx of Islamists from Middle Eastern countries just overrunning the West. Number one, stupid policies from the West. Okay, that's one thing. But there's two other things. Two, Western adventurism in the region, in the Middle East, destabilizing old regimes. And then the third reason is Iran. And the reason that the destabilization from Western adventurism in the Middle East is so destabilizing is because of Iran. And why is that important? If you want to stem the tide of the Islamist takeover of places like the United Kingdom, if you don't want the epic city in Texas, if you want to embark on some sort of repatriation operation in the next generation, Iran, I believe, has to be dealt with one way or another. That's just how I see it. Either they are the number one state sponsor of terrorists, or they aren't. These are just factual claims that you can debate if you want to, or you could just scream about Israel and how they are to blame for basically everything. So, three things I think are pretty clear. It's pretty clear who has a special animosity and a special love, different forms of partiality on opposite ends of the spectrum. It's pretty clear this operation now, this war against Iran, is for regime change. And I think in a big picture, it's pretty clear what the main cause, or some of the main causes for the influx, the overrunning of certain Western countries, especially in Europe, with Islamists, what has been driving that.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
And now here's this. Lindsey Graham.
Can you guarantee that? Can President Trump in any form, can you make the commitment that this would not lead to a longer war?
I can guarantee you that if the Ayatollah gets a nuclear weapon, he will use it. I believe that with all my heart and soul. So the men and women who serve, they're the ones going, not people answering a poll. And if you ask them, would you be willing to risk your life to stop the Ayatollah from having a nuclear weapon? All of them would say yes, because it makes their country, our country, safer. So we live in a world where you've got to confront problems. You want to avoid World War III? Learn the lessons from World War II. People in World War II appeased Hitler to the point that it got so much out of hand, we had a world war and 60 million people got killed. So we live in a world where you pay now or you pay later. Let's stop this threat before he gets a nuclear weapon. Let's end this reign of terror. Let's do it now. It's not going to take 20 months, but I can't guarantee you your freedom and your safety unless we're willing to fight for it. I can guarantee you this. If we don't fight for our freedom, we will lose it.
Please, I beg you. Boots on the ground one more time. Please. One more occupation, one more nation to build in the Middle East. If what he is insinuating there, Senator Lindsey Graham, if what he is insinuating there is that we need to commit to troops on the ground in a long-term invasion operation within Iran, no. 1,000 times no. People like Lindsey Graham, especially the rhetoric that he used towards the end there, if you're not willing to fight for your freedom, you'll lose it. It's very manipulative language, because there is an element of that is absolutely true, but it doesn't always need to look like building freaking nations in the Middle East. Doesn't need to be that. I am completely okay with what Israel is doing to Iran right now. You could talk me into and probably even persuade me that bunker busters to destroy nuclear facilities and other bunkers underground in Iran, supplied or even carried out by the United States, you could talk me into that. But absolutely not to any form of a ground campaign in Iran at all. No. This goes back to what Bibi Netanyahu, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt as well, what he was talking about the other day. With today it's Tel Aviv, tomorrow it's New York. Really, can you do a little bit more to maybe connect those dots for us? I understand the big picture view, but when you're in this position as a leader and you're actually the ones making the decisions, you got to spell that out a little bit better. Because I do agree, and they're nowhere near close to this. I do agree, intercontinental ballistic missiles, you don't want a crazy bloodthirsty regime that is completely antithetical. It's a theocracy that is completely antithetical to at least the way America was founded. You don't want them to have ICBMs with nuclear warheads. You just don't. But you also don't want to do nation building again in the Middle East. So if we can end this regime, if we can end that threat without any boots on the ground, that's the best of both worlds. Because that's the rock and the hard place here. On the one hand, you can't get into another ground war in the Middle East. On the other hand, you can't allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. So what do? Well, it seems like Israel is doing it for us. So that's good. That's the best of both worlds. Having said that already, though, there is a trajectory that I can see in the way this is unfolding. And the reason that I'm skittish about even helping from bunker busters like a Moab, something like that, is that I don't want that to be the gateway drug to going full Lindsey here. To go full nation building again. Let's do it one more. Let's try it one more time. Regime change again at the hands of the United States. Let's try that one more time. I don't want that to be the gateway drug. That's why I'm skittish about even helping Israel in that regard. But I could be talked into that. Here's a couple of things, though. I'm totally okay with what Israel is doing. But I can see a trajectory that we could get on very quickly where I'm not okay with how this is unfolding. And I just kind of got into that in a minor detail. There are a couple of things that unfolded in the unfolding of the Israel-Iran war that I call complete BS on. Number one, Israeli intelligence purportedly saying that Iran was just, quote unquote, days away from being able to weaponize a nuclear device. That's not how this works. I don't think they were days away. Do I think they were very close and maybe as close as they've ever been? Yes, but that's not how this works. Days away from building a nuclear warhead? No, those things take months, if not years, to build. So no, I don't believe that. They can't be on the precipice of highly enriched uranium and also on the precipice of being able to use that in a nuclear weapon. So that's BS number one. BS number two, did you see this story floating around? Satellite imagery of this new nuclear facility that we'd never known of before up until the last couple of days. Just, wow. Who could have seen that coming? Right as we open up this war against Iran, we just found this new nuclear bunker. Boy, maybe their nuclear program is a lot further along than we thought. That's also BS. It's just manipulative urgency setting or urgency building propaganda, in my estimation. So yes, I'm totally okay with what Israel is doing to Iran and the reason why they're doing it. I think it's the perfect scenario for the United States. I'm not okay with boots on the ground, and I will never be when it comes to Iran. I could be talked into the position of using United States weaponry if Israel needs it in their operations. But beyond that, let's just take a step back here, hope for the best, and ultimately hope for peace in that region. And I don't think it's any debate, however, no matter where you come on this issue, that Iran has not been party to peace in that region for about 50 years. Back in early 2019, I had owned a Mini Cooper. I purchased this Mini Cooper, I believe, back in 2014. It was a good car for me, but each winter I'd store it in a garage. Wasn't a heated garage ever, but I'd always store it indoors. Good thing. Well, coming out of the winter of 2018-2019, I was no longer able to store it in a garage. I left it outside in an Iowa winter for the first time. And it had a moonroof, and there's a valve from the moonroof down to the bottom of the car where water could drain without getting, stuck or into the car. Well, apparently there was some debris or something that clogged up that drainage pipe, and so some water froze inside that drainage pipe, expanded, and then unfroze again in the spring. And this drainage pipe just happens to go right over the main junction box for the electrical equipment of that car. And it was totally just destroyed. I mean, it would have cost more to repair that incident, I should say, than the car was worth. I loved that car, but I knew also in the back of my head it was probably time to move on to something a little bit more utilitarian. So the next month I went out and I bought a 2016 Subaru Outback. Loved that car, but within 2 months, that car had been stolen. 2 weeks after the car was stolen, got a call from dispatch saying, hey, we found your car. It's over in the seedy area of town. Here, come get it. So I drove over that area of town. There's 2 U.S. Marshals sitting in this random driveway. They never got out to say hi to me. All I talked to was a local police officer. Hey, we found your car. And boy, howdy, the meth addicts who got a hold of that car made mincemeat of the smell and the interior and just did a lot of damage. But fortunately, insurance came through for me. Then 6 months later, the day after Bella and I got married, we were driving in that Subaru Outback. We'd gotten it back from being stolen. We were driving it the day after we got married in the middle of the morning in the middle of suburban West Des Moines to the gym, because that's what new couples do. The day after they get married, they go to the gym. And in the middle of the morning, this December morning, bright suburban setting, a deer comes out of nowhere and does more damage to that Subaru Outback than the meth addicts did. And ever since then, I've had weird issues with the battery, parasitic draw, something like that. So that was the first volley. But otherwise, it was pretty dependable for me. I like that car a lot. Very utilitarian, very nice. If you've had one of these cars, you know just how well they run, except for the battery issue. Fast forward to around this time last year, an incident happened that I really have not talked about, I think, at all publicly, or at least in passing or in cryptic ways. But Ben and I were coming back from a park one Saturday morning around this time last year, as we typically did last summer. We were going through one of the busiest intersections in the town that we live in. It's a blind intersection. I had a green light. I proceeded through the green light and was immediately T-boned by a police officer on his way to a call. Now, the police officer had his lights on, but he did not have his sirens on. But because Iowa statute is that they can have lights or sirens on, it was determined that I was at fault for that accident. Even though it was a blind intersection, he didn't have his sirens on, and I had a green light. All of those things are factual and true. It's just lucky everybody walked away. And by the way, the sound of Ben screaming still haunts me in the backseat. But everybody was just fine. Everybody walked away. I was reminded of the series of events with that car, and it was totaled, obviously, in that last event. I was reminded of that while I was talking to my insurance agent yesterday, trying to see if I could finagle a little bit better deal. And I thought to myself, I talked yesterday about how AI has gone too far. There are people who treat it like their boyfriend or like their therapist, but it has some interesting uses as well. I asked Grok to add up the probability of all of those events happening to one car, the Subaru Outback. It's a 1 in 797 billion chance of all of those things in a 5-year period happening to one car. My question is this morning, and I want your feedback. Do you believe that God was trying to tell me something? Or am I making too big of a deal out of that? I don't believe he was trying to tell me anything. I just think that car, there was just something wrong with it. I don't believe in luck. It was just bad. Just terrible things happening. I don't really believe that there was any message being sent. But when I was reviewing that again yesterday, maybe I should ask other people. Do you think God was trying to tell me something? Or do you believe that God never uses things like this to try to get a message across to his people? Let me know. Find me at Real AM Update on X. Comment on Spotify if you want to. It was just something that stuck out in my mind yesterday as I was going back through that just terrible string of events with my last car.
You're listening to the AM Update, Week in Review. Follow on X and Instagram at Real AM Update.
Finally, it's our poll of the week. I asked you, what will the time frame of the Israel-Iran war end up being? I left this fairly open-ended, gave you 4 options. First option I gave you is prolonged and the U.S. will be involved. Another nation-building exercise or a prolonged involvement in another conflict in the Middle East. The second option I gave you is prolonged, but the U.S. will not be involved. Third option is this will be a short conflict and the U.S. will be involved in some way militarily. And the fourth option I gave you is the short option, short campaign, and the U.S. will not be involved. Here are the results. In fourth place, a prolonged operation where the U.S. is not involved. 10% of you think that. In third place, a prolonged war and the U.S. will be involved. 17.6% said that. Second place is a short operation where the U.S. is not involved at all, 30.9%. And the number one answer, a short operation with the U.S. being involved, at 41.2%. Basically, bunker buster time is what the majority, or that's the number one option. It was a fairly evenly divided poll, more than usual. We'll go to Zach first. All the U.S. has to do is drop one bunker buster from a B-2 bomber on the Fordo nuclear site, and it's over. Pretty sure the Supreme Leader is also hiding there. Not sure about that last part, although nobody knows. No civilian knows for sure. I've also seen that he's somewhere in, I think, northeastern Tehran. But yeah, that's kind of the option that won here. Is it's pretty much if you drop a bunker buster on that last remaining nuclear facility, or at least the highly, highly protected one, it's basically ball game over, regardless of if there is regime change. Trevor says, I'm voting short U.S. not involved, as I'm interpreting involvement as direct military action. So you don't think there's going to be any bunker busters, no air action whatsoever, according to Trevor. Tom is next. I'm voting short with no U.S. involvement. Again, I can see that the U.S. may be involved afterwards as assisting with offering cleanup support, which may include assistance to the new regime. So yeah, that kind of fits outside of the options I gave you. Jay Breezy says, I can see a scenario where we get in and help reinstall the Shah of Iran, the son of the one that was taken out, and there will be a more settled Middle East, but maybe it's just hopium on my part. That's what I think everybody who is sane is just hoping for peace, one way or another. Revival or Bust says Trump's very much against forever wars. That's true. He's been on that since before he was for tariffs. He just sees this as a great time to make sure we send Iran's nuclear dreams back decades. This is consistent from Trump and makes total sense. It will be a short engagement. Yep, that's kind of what I voted for, too. It certainly seems like we're gearing up for some sort of big old bomb somewhere, somehow. Jim says, as long as the death to America crowd rules in Iran and the possibility of them acquiring nukes remains, the potential for U.S. involvement in the war looms in perpetuity. The military-industrial complex will see to it that this thing isn't protracted. Well, I think your first sentence there is very on the money. As long as one of the foundational pillars of their worldview, of the mullah's worldview in Iran, is death to America, death to Israel, of course there's always going to be the possibility of U.S. military involvement. TNT says, sorry, Aaron, you're trying to simplify the ongoing debate of what does a country do when another calls continually for its destruction. I don't think I'm simplifying anything. I think I'm just asking people what they think the outcome of this war will be. That's all in terms of a time frame. That's really all that this is. Just trying to get a pulse for what the mood actually is at the moment.
This has been the AM Update Week in Review. The AM Update will be back on Monday and every weekday at 4 a.m. Eastern Time.